Hello and welcome to Brown Lomax Movie Talk. Joining me once again, yes, is Christopher Durbin from Durbania. Yeah, if you are not subscribed to Durbania, what the heck are you doing? Get over there, subscribe. But not right now because we've got a show for you. Yes, we've already done season 1 and 2, top 5, bottom 5 episodes of Smallville. We're moving into arguably the best season of Smallville. Now, it
certainly is good.
Yes, certainly at one point, I would have said this was my favorite season. I've done a recent rewatch, so I'm not going to say whether that is the case now. But yeah, certainly this was the high bar for me anyway. That kind of needed to be broken, so to speak. But yeah, season 3. Durbin, do you want to give me like your initial thoughts on when you saw this, what you were doing around the time, and what you thought of it when it
let me
when
see.
It hit?
What was I doing? I think it's probably my first or second year of college, and this was when I was firmly like on fire for this show. I feel like I caught season 1 somewhere in the middle, really liked it, missed a chunk of season 2, but got most of it. But after that season 2 finale, I was 110% hooked forever, and so this was probably the first season that I followed the most faithfully, like to the point that I was such a nerd. I had a little VHS tape and I would record the episodes, hit pause at the commercial breaks and record them as they played because like I just had a lot of fun. And then like for us doing this bottom 5, I didn't realize how much I liked season 3 until I struggled with some of the bottom 5. So I was like, wow, I guess I really liked this season more than I even remembered on my last rewatch. So that was cool.
Yeah, I can just looking at, certainly my number 5 and number 4 are not what I would call bad episodes. They just happen to be within the bottom 5 of this season. But yeah, I'm certainly happy to watch those 2 episodes when they come on. Bottom 3 start to struggle when we get there, but hey ho, I'm sure
I feel kind of the same about my bottom 3. I mean, once you get to the bottom, they are definitely the bottom. And Smallville always has a bottom, but nonetheless, this has had the least bottoms for me.
And I'm sure Lana will have something to do with that on your end, but let's go. Okay, so just for those who maybe struggling to remember what season 3 was kind of all about, this is the year that basically Lex Luthor ended up in an insane asylum, and there's a really good story that kind of goes across the season, dips in and out, in which he loses the plot in one episode, ends up in an asylum in another episode, and then they revisit it in a later episode in the season, in which we learn what happened back when he was a kid with his brother Julian and that. And it's got a really great arc for Lex. Lana
she never has a good arc, and don't even pretend that she
does. Once again, she has an arc that kind of gets ditched.
Thank you, Dale. Hashtag Lana drama. He did it for me.
Yeah, she has what starts to look like an interesting arc with this character called Adam, which they clearly just decide to ditch. And then that's it. A bit like with the Henry Small thing in season 2 and Whitney in season 1. They don't quite know what to do with that.
But Adam had more of a purpose, I will argue, than Whitney and her dad. Like, he was kind of put there by Lionel Luthor. So I feel like he had a purpose and he had an ending. At least, like, he's gone, and I get why he's gone. Whereas Henry Small, that's kind of a weird thing that he just vanished and we will never go back. It's like, what was that?
Yeah. But anyway, so that for those who watch the show but maybe haven't seen it in a while, it gives you a rough idea of where we're landing with season 3. But we're going to give you our bottom 5 first, because as we've said before in the previous shows, we don't want to end on a downer. Let's get the crap out of the way first and end on a high, end on a positive. But like I say, there's not that much crap. So we'll, Durbin's going to go first, as is customary when we're on each other's channels. But it'd be interesting to see. I know Durbin's because obviously he has
Yeah.
to send me his so I can do the show notes and stuff like that. He doesn't know
I don't know
mine.
Brian's.
So it'll be interesting to
Brian.
see what his reaction is to some of these.
I can't wait, actually.
But yeah, so Durban, hit us up with your number 5 from your bottom 5 of season 3.
All right. My number 5 is Talisman. And I think it's my number 5 because I did have to have a bottom 5. I don't love Talisman, but I don't feel like I absolutely hate it either. It's got interesting stuff. And probably my 2 favorite things that come out of this episode are Clark getting stabbed by a kryptonite blade and Jonathan Kent miraculously healing him as Jor-El used him as a vessel. I thought that was pretty cool. And the other thing I like, the quote that, the professor gives Clark when he says Jeremiah is desperately trying to be somebody he's not while you're trying not to be somebody you are. And I like that concept. But as a whole, it's weird. It kind of felt like a freak of the week. So you have the caves, and now we come up with this plot of a Kryptonian dagger that is endowed with Kryptonian power somehow. And whoever touches it gets the strength to temporarily guard it. And I would think, from what we've seen of Jor-El just through season 2 through this point, and what we learn of Jor-El later, he is a lot smarter than this. And so the idea that this guy just lifts up the dagger and suddenly is endowed with these Kryptonian powers, and he thinks he's Naman, the promised one, the chosen one, and he goes about trying to kill Sagith and fulfill his prophecy, who he believes Sagith is Lionel. And so then it did feel like Lionel and Lex were racing to be Sagith. And I did like Lex's interpretation at the end that somebody that powerful, any regular mortal who's willing to stand up to that, well, then that person truly is a hero. And it's like, well, yeah, the bad guy would see it that way. So like it has interesting things, which is why it's here at number 5. But it also has a lot that just feels a little too freak of the weekish, and it just, didn't hit the favorites.
It sits somewhere around the top of the middle for me for season 3.
Yeah.
It is actually an episode that until my recent revisit wasn't really high on my agenda. I was kind of like, Talisman, I don't remember that one being that great. But when I watched it this time around, the last time I watched it, I was like, I actually like that one a lot more than I remembered. And it is because of that whole just the interpretation that Lex has on Sagith and things like that. And just the signposting for these characters, that if you know the lore of Superman and whatnot, which most people do, even in just a passing kind of way, it's just nice to think about where these guys are heading, what's going to happen. But
I think the dagger thing is what throws me. I don't mind somebody having Clark's powers. Very cool that Clark got stabbed. Like the result of it was cool, but like I said, it's like, well, Jor-El's too smart for that. I can't imagine somebody that unworthy would be able to hold the dagger and get that power. And I feel like for me, that's why I put this at my number 5. But I also agree with you. Like it's hard because there's a lot of interesting thing around what I found kind of lame about it. Because I mean, that's what Smallville does though. Sometimes, like sometimes even in their bottom episodes, they put enough good in there that it's like, I need to watch the episode, and it's not the worst thing I've seen.
Let's wait till we get to season 4 and the Stones.
I had an easier time with my bottom 5 for season 4. Let me tell you.
It was a struggle actually trying to figure out which ones to leave off.
And I love season 4, but there were some bad ones in that season.
There are some low points in season 4. Aaron White there, just the Lana rants are epic. So
thank you. There's one more coming next Sunday. One more coming from me.
You're going to be getting some more of them coming. So and Rebecca Ruiz, wait till we get to season 4. But I totally agree. Ageless from season 4 is horrible. It's just. If you're if you're there in the comments right now, if you're watching, just let us know what your favorites are. While we're talking about least favorites at the moment, let us know what your least favorites of season 3 are, because that's the season we want to talk about here. And let us know why why don't you like them? So getting into my number 5. If I can pull up one little thing here. My number 5, and again, like I say, this isn't a bad episode. It's just that there are better ones in the season, and it is Velocity. Now, a lot of this has to do with the fact that it centers mostly on Pete. It was a character that,
Pete.
Yeah, he's one of those characters where, quite frankly, he let me phrase this right. Bearing in mind, I'm a huge fan of the character of Chloe Sullivan. Chloe Sullivan fills that kind of void that, quite frankly, should have been Pete.
Yes.
Pete, if you know Superman lore, if you know the comic books, you know that Pete Ross was Superman's childhood friend, Clark Kent's childhood friend. So it was always a bit bizarre that they, bring in this new character that no one's heard of, Chloe Sullivan, who ends up kind of fulfilling everything that you would expect, essentially, Pete Ross to fulfill.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes Pete Ross redundant. And then when they write episodes for Pete, they make him annoying. They turn him into, let's face it, a bit of a douchebag.
Yeah. I can agree.
Yeah. I just watched season 7, in which he makes a reappearance.
Oh, poor Pete.
I'm looking forward to when we get to that.
Oh.
But
I talked about that in my season 7 review for 3 seconds because there is no meat to even talk about.
Yeah, it's So Velocity, it's basically the Fast and the Furious meets Smallville, but just not particularly great. Mostly because half the time I just want Clark to give Pete a bit of a slap, and I want Pete to stop moaning about the fact that he has such a burden placed on him because he knows Clark's secret, and it's just like, yeah. So yeah, like I say, there's some good stuff in it, but it's just not like, I watch it when I'm doing a run through of the entire show. It's not one where I'm like, I'm in a Smallville mood tonight, I'm just going to pull out a favorite. This ain't going to be it. So yeah.
Honestly, when I went through a couple drafts of my bottom 5, it was pretty much a coin toss between Talisman and Velocity being in this place. And I think I mostly Velocity. Yeah, so Velocity gets an honorable mention. And I think the only reason I didn't place it there is because I think I liked Pete kind of figuring out that here he is in trouble, and now he wants to use Clark to get him out of trouble, and then realizing, oh crap, like realizing the full weight of what he almost did to Clark, and then what Clark went through to get his hands dirty for, like, that aspect I found interesting. But I 100% agree with you. It's really not that fascinating of an episode. In fact, Pete, to me, is underused and underdeveloped, and he only becomes interesting towards the end of season 3 when they're writing him off. For some reason, that made him more interesting than any other point. So I think I agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, give us your number 4.
My number 4 is Extinction.
You're wrong. Man.
The Lana drama is a huge reason why this is at number 4. Here's what I like about Extinction. Let me just start there. The kryptonite bullet. That was cool. I enjoyed everything surrounding that. Him making the kryptonite bullet, Clark getting shot, Jonathan heating up that knife, digging into Clark's wound and digging out the kryptonite bullet. Like, all of that stuff was so cool. And then Lana had to open her mouth. It drives me up a wall that Clark saves her at the end of season 1, beginning of season 2 from that tornado. And then he gets away. So she's like, was that Clark? But she feels entitled to his secret because he saved her. And so here she is being all Lana drama at the end of this episode, telling him what a lonely life he's going to lead if he can't open up. And there might be truth to that, but as we know later, he opens up to the right people. And even when he opens up to Lana, we find how wrong that was and how she should have been gone a long time ago. So it really just, it boils down to me, this irritating Lana drama. Like, why did Frog Boy in the beginning, who sits at the bottom of the swimming pool, have this huge crush on her? I don't get it. Like, I don't understand this crypto freak obsession that people have with Lana. It bugs me. It must be a superpower. Something about the kryptonite is drawn to Lana, who later becomes a living embodiment of kryptonite. It must know that, and it's just all kryptonite freaks are drawn to her because I don't see it. But anyway, yeah, the Lana drama is what puts this at my number 4.
I just, the thing is, there's so much Lana drama throughout the season.
Yes.
To have that as your main criticism of the episode is just like,
don't worry. Don't worry.
You need more than that. Just,
I have worse ones later on with Lana drama. So.
Just
that's how much she irritates me.
No, man. I take umbrage with this. Extinction actually came close to being in my top 5 episodes.
Whoa.
Yes, I think it's a really great thriller episode, and I love the way it plays on your expectations, because actually the opening scene, when the opening scene starts, it's one of those scenes that makes you go, oh, come on, again. Another flipping bug boy freak who wants to go with Lana. And then boom, he takes that bullet and you're like, oh, this is different.
Yeah.
What? Okay, where are they going with this then? So, and I really loved that concept of a guy who doesn't have meteor freak abilities, but has a vendetta against meteor freaks, because it's something they've not really touched on as much. They have all these meteor freaks kind of going off the rails and killing people and doing stuff. And you never seem to get, the response to that. So I like that they do that here in this episode. I like that this episode is a response to that. And that this character, he's not super powered. He's just very good with it, with a rifle. So yeah, I like the way it twists your expectations with that opening scene. I like the villain. I think he's a pretty good villain. And again, some real standout moments, like with the kryptonite bullet and stuff. And I'll say this as well. I like that Lana actually takes him down at the end, because
kind of takes him down in the end.
She kicks his ass. She stamps on his foot.
But if Clark wasn't there, she wouldn't have been able to do it.
I like the fact that this episode is really the start of when Lana actually becomes a bit more physical, a bit more, I need to stop being damsel in distress and do stuff. And that's something that kind of runs across season 3 since the season 2 episode Precipice, when because before Precipice, she was always damsel in distress and whatnot. And one of my favorite episodes, and Lex trains her, gives her, like fighting training and stuff like that. So it's nice to see, actually, this is essentially a carryover from that. So that training that she had in Precipice, and the change in attitude, rather than running, she was more of a fighter from that point on. I like that they stick with that. There is progression there. There's growth in that character that has stuck and remained. So when she fights back at the end, I liked it. So I think the episode on the whole is pretty badass. It's a really good episode. And I think any episode that's got Lana in it can be accused of Lana drama. So I think that's a poor criticism to put this one in your bottom 5. Bottom 5 though.
I see her progression in entitlement mentality. And so I'm sitting here going, okay, so she feels entitled to Clark's secret because of the whole tornado thing. And at the end, she's not trying to be supportive to Clark when she sees him out that cornfield and she's feeling his chest for bullet bruises. She's really trying to be like, are you really bruised? Or was he right? And are you bulletproof? And to me, it just feels like her entitlement to know about Clark gets stronger here. And I think that's what bugs me. I mean, there's so much.
But naturally so. I think it bugs you because of again, when we get past season 3, when we're into season 4 and season 5, that's when that stuff becomes annoying. But you have to take this within the context of when it was. And that curiosity she has there is natural. It's, you can't blame her for having that curiosity.
I can't, but at the same time, I know I'm jumping out of context again, but look at when Chloe found out. Like, Chloe's curious, and she does a few stupid things this season, but at the same time, I feel like she's much more mature about her curiosity, especially when she actually finds out Clark's secret. She's incredibly mature in how she handles it.
Yeah, but she found out. That's the thing. Lana hasn't.
But even Lana found out, and it's still not mature.
Well, I disagree. I season 5, season 4 did a lot to mess up the character of Lana for me, to really turn me off.
I do agree. Yes.
Season 5 did quite a lot to actually get me back on board to a degree, not completely.
I was never back on board.
But we'll get there when we get there. So, yeah. Anyway, enough of that. I think you're wrong, but there you go. I think that's the first episode. I think for doing these shows, I think that's the first episode that I've disagreed strongly with.
That's true.
Because like Extinction's in your bottom 5, and for me, it came very close to being in my top 5. So yeah. But there you go. That's good to have these disagreements every now and again.
I think so. It's a good, healthy thing.
Yeah. Anyway, my number 4 for my worst episodes of the season is Truth. Now, the main problem with this episode, like you turn around and you tell me, oh, this is going to be a Chloe-centric episode. That gets me fired up. That gets me, well, great. Chloe's practically the best character on the show other than Lionel and Lex, so bring it. But they make her character really unlikable, and she does things that I don't personally think Chloe would do. And it's all about her getting the ability to pull the truth from people. If she asks them the question, they feel compelled to tell her the truth. So then she uses that very irresponsibly because she's chasing the reporter kind of. Now, I get that. I get the angle they're taking. I get the story they're trying to tell. It's just I personally don't buy that in Chloe. I think I
agree there.
I don't think we've seen because like there's a moment in there where she I can't remember the exact specifics of it, but she does something. She outs the truth about someone that really affects them, and
it was a teacher, and it affected her son.
And Chloe knows what she's doing, but she does it anyway because she wants the story, and I don't buy that. To me, I feel that's a betrayal of the character from a writing standpoint. I feel that's the writers taking too many liberties for the sake of telling a particular story. And I think that power should have been given to someone working on the torch. There should have been another student who was working with Chloe on the Torch newspaper who got that power, and then Chloe kind of feels a bit like this person's overstepping boundaries. They're taking their search for the truth too far, and then she could have been that moral conscience. But instead, they put it all on Chloe, and it's a character turn in her that I don't buy because I don't believe she is that person. I think she's a truth seeker, undoubtedly. I think she's a reporter who doesn't give up a story that easily. But ultimately, she isn't someone who's vindictive. She isn't someone who hurts people. And we've seen when Clark's response to her getting too close to his truth, his past. We've seen how once she realizes that actually she is crossing the line, she steps back. And she protects that friendship, and she I don't buy it, and it kind of makes me dislike her, and there shouldn't ever be a time where I dislike Chloe because she's always so likable. So that's my number.
I feel like they were really trying to play off the fact that she was kind of mad at Clark at the end of season 2 and temporarily joined forces with Lionel. But they did such an about face, like right in the first 2 episodes, that it doesn't make this believable. And I think they're missing a key element with this episode, because if they had explained it like it's her red kryptonite, and it didn't just give her this ability, but it also took away her inhibitions like red kryptonite does for Clark, that would have made a lot more sense. But they didn't do that at all. And so it's just like, okay, but yeah, why are you betraying her character and her heart like that? You just gave her power and you did nothing else. And so that's kind of how I feel about that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, daughter just came in to say goodnight.
It's an important thing to do.
It is. Okay. Yeah, seeing we're getting a few people there agreeing on truth. Glad about that. But yeah, we're out. Number 3. Hang on. Yes. No comments about the whole cult thing, please. It's still a bit of a sore spot for me.
Yeah. It is sad. It is.
It is. It's very sad.
But we're going to separate Chloe, and we're just going to talk about our love for the character Chloe. Yes.
Yeah, love for the character. And, my prayer is that Alison Mack gets back on the straight and narrow. I feel like at some point. I feel like she's as much of a victim as anyone, to be honest. Watch The Vow. If you've not seen The Vow, watch The Vow. I was just talking to Durban about it before we went on. It is a documentary series all about the NXIVM cult, and you owe it to yourself to watch it. If you want to know about what went on there, if you really want to know the true story, the full story, watch it, because it is crazy insane. But yeah, anyway, I love Chloe. She's great.
Yep.
Wizzy Lizzy, it's on Sky. Yeah, it is. Okay, so Durban, you're number 3.
I struggled with number 3 quite a bit, but my number 3 is Relic. And I really struggled with this episode, because let me just tell you what I like and why I strongly like what I like. What I strongly like is after season 2, where you have the AI voice of Jor-El, and he's cold and he's evil and it's scary. Suddenly we have Jor-El on Earth, and we get this really interesting concept: Kryptonians sent to Earth as a rite of passage, which is like, that would be interesting. I mean, if we were so technologically advanced and we're sent to a planet where we get powers, but we have to learn how to walk humbly with those powers, that would be an interesting rite of passage. And so, like, the fact that Jor-El has to come to Smallville in the 60s, because that's where the portal is, it's like, okay, that's interesting. Clark playing Jor-El, I'm almost okay with that. So I kind of have fun with putting a little flesh and bone on Jor-El. Yes?
Can I just stop there, because can I just hazard a guess?
Yes.
As to what?
You already know. You don't have to guess. That's why I'm getting the good part out of the way. There's one solid thing I can't stand, and it ruins this whole episode.
Before you get to it,
before
you get to it, I do have to just point out that my number 3 is also Relic, just because. Yes. And that picture right there pretty much says it all. But I'll let you continue. Go on.
Well, I also love him meeting Hiram Kent. I wish the episode was more about him and the Kents. That would have made it better, because he only meets Hiram for such a short time and gets such a good vibe off of the Kents that he wants to send the ship to that farm, to Smallville, and pretty much send Kal-El to the Kents. And so I thought that was actually kind of a bold choice for Superman lore, to declare that it wasn't just he was sent to Earth, but there was an actual chosen place. So that stuff to me was the interesting stuff that came out of that episode. Everything else was awful. This show is so high on Lana Lang, and that she must be important, even though we know Clark ends up with Lois and she has no bearing on his future, his destiny, or anything. This show is so high on her that what they do is make Great Aunt Lana fall in love with Jor-El. And in the process of this, they glorify adultery. As long as you're in love, it's okay. And I'm like,
that's the kicker for me. That's the bit that this is one of my absolute bugbears about a lot of Hollywood. The thing is, this doesn't even fall into that criteria, because what I was going to say is one of my real bugbears about a lot of romantic movies and stuff in Hollywood is when they give someone, there's a particular trope where they give someone a partner who is an asshole, or
Yeah.
a complete douche, because they want you to root for the person to break up with them and go off with the hero of the film. You know, that they're essentially trying to position you to support the person committing adultery. But that's not even the case in this episode. The
like her
person
husband's not bad.
He's a nice
good dude.
guy. He's not even a douchebag. She's just this selfish, self-centered, I want to be a Hollywood movie star kind of.
And even the way she says it, I want to be a star. Like the cadence in her voice. It's like,
man.
Oh, I can't stand her.
Quite frankly, it is, and it's not Lana. It's Lana's great.
But she doesn't play it different. She doesn't do anything different.
But we're meant to see Lana in her. That's the thing. And it's like, you know, because later on, Lana, you know, sees parallels between her and her great aunt or whatever it is. And it's just like, if you see parallels with her, then you're not a likable person, because she was awful. She was awful. She cheated on her husband. He wasn't a douchebag. He didn't treat her badly. She just had stars in her eyes about wanting to go to Hollywood and make movies. And it was just, it's so self-centered. It's so selfish. It's just like, there's nothing likable about this character. And we're supposed to buy that Jor-El falls for her and all that. And it's just like.
And what's funny is, like with everything you're saying, I'm in 100% agreement. But Great Aunt Lana is not even in love with Jor-El. It's lust. That's all it is. It's like this passionate affair. And it's like, if the show could follow it to its logical ends, I mean, she would end up meeting the colder Kryptonian side of Jor-El. Like, that wouldn't work out because she's got stars in her eyes. I want to go to Hollywood. And it's just, and so what I hate is, and this is kind of what drives me nuts about Lana, again, because I feel like when, even in this Great Aunt thing, and you're supposed to see a lot of Lana in it, that's where I see that entitlement thing. She married not Joe, whatever her husband's name was, because she felt like she had to. I don't know why she felt like she had to. And then she goes off and meets Jor-El and feels like she's entitled to that happiness and commits adultery. But the show wants us to believe this was a good, passionate affair of the heart. I'm like, this is the stupidest thing ever.
Yeah. I just wanted to pull that comment up there by Wizzy Lizzie. Don't forget her mum went off with Mr. Small as well.
Yeah.
So it's literally, it's in the family.
Yeah.
It's in the family.
That's a curse that needs to be broken, not glorified.
Yeah. It's just like, it is not an endearing quality, it must be said. So, totally with you. Like I say, we both have it at number 3. It feels like literally that whole kind of plot line is there just so that they can do the whole Clark looks like Jor-El moment at the end for the mayor, and it's like,
and that was dumb. But like I said, and that's my problem with Lana, because I feel like whenever it's Clark and Krypton and building on its destiny, this show is so good. But I feel like whenever Lana has to have a central role, it pulls it down. And this episode for season 3 is a primary example of that in season 3. Technically, that's not Lana. But here we are learning something great about Krypton. We're getting amazing Kryptonian lore that we've not seen in like the comics. So it's actually kind of new and cool. And then there she is to just drag it down. And it's like, come on.
Totally. Absolutely. Right. So moving on to number 2. We'll go with you first.
All right.
What is your number 2?
My number 2 is Slumber. And this episode is such a nothing episode for me that I don't even have meat and potatoes to talk about. If this episode was never made and it never aired and it was never in this season, it contributes nothing and it takes away nothing. It's just get rid of this episode.
It gives us Catherine Isabella. Come on.
I guess. Yeah. Okay. It gives us her.
I actually don't mind this episode. I quite like it, but I do get what you're saying. It is, and I think mostly for me, it's towards the end. I think it's got a nice plot, a nice idea behind it.
Yeah.
But I think that the guy who is behind it all makes some really bizarre choices towards the end.
Yes, he does.
Like,
for sure.
Yeah, like when he tries to set up the fire, the car fire with Lana in.
Oh yeah,
and
I forgot about that till you said
and
it.
he puts the fuel kind of, and then he's going to light it, but then he just tosses the gas canister to the side with his fingerprints all over it, and it's just
Does this show not remember we have fingerprints?
Yeah.
It's just when he tosses it, it's like, dude, you're connected to this right now.
Just absolutely stupid. But other than that, I think up until that final act, I thought it was an interesting episode. Had some nice ideas in it.
I just thought, like, even when like the dude in the red robes, who was the manifestation of her uncle, like, it was like you said, yeah, it's an interesting concept. But I felt like I didn't like the dude's voice, and I didn't like the way he talked. Like, the lines were cheesy, and so. Here's an interesting concept shrouded in something that just, I don't know, the lines didn't work, the sound of his voice didn't work, and just combine that with the fact that if you took this episode out of the season, it doesn't give to the show, it doesn't take away. It's just blah.
Yeah. I get it. It's a totally average episode for me. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. It's it is what it is. But okay, an episode that I'm sure you're going to have some strong opinions on, but my number 2 is Magnetic.
Oh, I definitely have some opinions on Magnetic.
Why do you have some strong opinions on Magnetic?
Oh, it might be because it is my number 1 bottom episode of the season.
There we go.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, it's not a good episode. No. First of all, it does the one trope on Smallville that I think you and I can both agree is the most annoying trope, which is that we have a meteor freak who is obsessed with Lana for no apparent reason. And so at this point, when we're in season 3, right near the end of season 3, we've never met this guy before. We've never seen him. We've never heard of him. All of a sudden, we're 3 years into the show, and we're supposed to buy that this guy is obsessed with Lana, even though we've never even seen him hanging around. At this point, it's getting really, really silly.
It really is.
So, and to top it off, the guy's got no character, no charisma, no anything. He's just like a blank slate from start to finish. And when he's first introduced, we see that he's all really jealous and stuff of people around Lana, and you're like, where is this coming from? Where is this coming from? I don't know this guy. Who is he? Why is he feeling this way? There's no character building there at all. It's just bland freak of the week, completely uninteresting, and it's Lana focused, so that makes it even less interesting. But
I saw in the comments someone already said Lana is the victim in this episode, and she is. She's definitely the victim in this episode, but it bugs me. And everything you said, I don't know what else to say other than what you said. We don't know this guy. He's as bland as a popsicle stick. Well, some of those have jokes on him, so maybe he's even less bland than that. I don't know, but and we have to buy that he's been here this entire time, that he's had this massive crush on Lana this entire time. And then for all intents and purposes, because of a snow globe with kryptonite flakes, he gets magnetic powers, and he's basically Magneto. In the DC universe, he's Magneto with the added power that somehow he can alter brain chemistry with the magnetic powers. And I think if I had to pick what drives me nuts about Lana drama is, yes, he's changing her brain chemistry and drawing her to him, but she gets so melodramatic about that. And I'm just like, she's just not that fun to watch. I mean, I think the best part of this episode is when Clark melts the road and their car gets stuck in it. Otherwise, I think I put this here because season 3, like you said, is really good. Like overall, it is a great season. And Magnetic, because of being centered around Lana, because of it being so bland, because of this bad guy being out of the blue and nowhere, and it's like he goes nowhere. It's like whatever. This is definitely one I could always skip.
Absolutely, yeah. I struggle to remember anything about it. That's the thing. It's like these kind of episodes. I watched season 3 not so long ago because I reviewed it on my channel. Hang on a minute.
Bless you.
Whew. Yeah, this is one of them episodes where literally the only thing I can remember is just how bland this guy was. I don't really remember much about the plotting or anything. It's just there's nothing to it. So yeah. Anyway,
that's how it was with Slumber. I totally forgot about the gas can until you said it. It just left my brain.
Scotty Boy Rules says that Magnetic was the first episode of Smallville I ever saw, and was the episode that got me into Smallville.
I get
now.
No, I was just gonna say. I mean, Smallville's a great show, and if it was your first episode that got you in, I get the nostalgia.
Yeah. The thing is, you've got to bear in mind as well that if that's your first episode, you don't know the backstory with Lana. You don't know that this is something they do all the time. You don't,
Yes.
So I imagine it would be a much better episode if it was the first one you'd ever seen.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. Taken within the context of the whole show, though, not so much. All right. Okay. So my number one, if I can get the banner up, is Hereafter. Now
this is where I have a strongly different opinion than you.
most people seem to. This is one that caused a bit of consternation when I reviewed it on Smallville fans Facebook group. Yeah, I just there's a lot about this that all the best bits of this episode shouldn't be in this episode.
Yeah.
Okay. You've got Jonathan Kent has his first kind of heart attack, which is basically a kind of his body's response to what happened at the beginning of the season when Jor-El gave him powers.
Have you noticed real quick? Nobody else has that response, apparently. All the people that get powers, they tell them that. Anyway.
Yeah. They do reference it, though. They do reference it.
They do.
So, but
yeah,
most of the people that get it are younger, so I'm going to put it down to that.
Yes.
But yeah. So that moment right at the end of the show, it's literally the closing moment. He has a heart attack, and it has nothing to do with anything in the rest of the episode.
No. But they don't even go into it Velocity that much, because Velocity is the very next episode.
Yeah, it's thrown in there, and it just feels like, what on earth? That heart attack should have been the opening tease before the credits of the episode in which Jonathan ends up in hospital. It should not be tacked on to what is otherwise a pretty crap episode, which has a couple of things in it that are of interest, which is, you got this guy who can see into people's futures, and there's one bit where we see the Superman's cape, and we see that.
That's awesome. I love that.
So that's a cool moment, but it's a cool moment in what is just a really, really bland episode as far as I'm concerned. And they do that thing as well where we mentioned this with a few, like season 1 episode, and we may have mentioned it in season 2 as well, which is when they have a really bad episode and it seems to be just going a bit bland. So if they can't salvage it, they just throw some really great pyrotechnics in at the end. You know, and they have this really great explosion at the end of the episode, and it's like, there you go. That makes up for what is, on the whole, a pretty piss poor episode. And I feel like a lot of it is also down to the freak of the week for this one. The guy who's got the power to look into the future. It's just bland. The guy is like watching a plank of wood throughout. Like, seriously, dude, emote. I don't feel anything. That's the point. It's like I feel nothing for this guy, and his journey should be an emotional one, and it isn't. I feel nothing for him. The little tangents to go on with family members and various things like that. I'm not interested at all. The only time in the episode when I go, ooh, is when, like, yeah, he has a vision of the future of characters that actually matter, like Clark, you know?
Yeah.
But even then, it's a fleeting moment of his cape, and it's like, great, I watched 40 minutes for that. And then, and then an ending that is tacked on that doesn't feel relevant to the rest of the episode. And it just feels like this episode isn't great, but we want to make it important. So let's stick this on the end with Jonathan's heart attack, because it's a big moment, and it'll boost the episode up in people's minds and make people think it's actually more important than it actually is. And it's just, yeah, that's the way I feel about it. It's not a great episode. It's blander than bland.
Yeah. I agree with Aaron. Cassandra from Hourglass was a million times better. But I mean, I think what keeps this out of my bottom 5, it didn't reach my top 5, but what keeps it out of my bottom 5 and as an episode I like is kind of that philosophical level of this episode. The ability of Clark to change destiny, because you have Jordan who, you know, touches Lana's hand at the beginning and sees her dying of old age. He bumps shoulders with the coach or whatever and sees the coach committing suicide. Well, Clark saves the coach from committing suicide, which then, by saving that one person, changed Lana's destiny. And the next time he touched Lana, he saw Lana dying in a fire. And so the underlining concept that Clark can change destiny, and what are the consequences of that? Because he saves Lex Luthor. And what you really see is the world probably would have been better off if Lex had died. But also, Lex really does have our free will. He could have chose his own destiny, and he could have chose a better path. And so it adds to me, like, kind of that element on top of, it is Clark's responsibility to use his powers for good. But even though he uses his powers for good, I mean, think about it. He saved Lex Luthor. But he could not save Lex. I mean, he has that responsibility and he has that ability. He needs to save Lex. So the fact that's why I like this episode. Like, a lot of the stuff you're saying is very valid, and I get it. But I think I like that overall philosophical picture of a being like Clark with that much power walking the earth, and the consequences of a being with that much power walking the earth. And so I think that's what I found the most interesting about that episode.
Yeah, like Wizzy Lizzy, butterfly effect. It's the concept of butterfly effect, but butterfly effect did it better, and that's not even a great film. So
yeah, it's true.
But yeah, there you go. So I believe that's it for the bottom 5. We've both done our bottom 5. Okay, so moving on to greener pastures with our top 5. So these are all really badass episodes. For me, these top 5 are all what I would call 5-star episodes. There's just cream of the crop. The reason season 3 is so good. And there are a couple of other 5-star episodes that didn't quite get to make the top 5 on this, which was
I almost could have done a top 10 for the best, because there were a lot of good ones this season.
Definitely. So, with that in mind, let's kick off with your number 5.
My number 5, and it was hard to put it all the way at the bottom, number 5, Asylum. Asylum was such a powerful episode. I mean, right from the beginning, where Clark is walking through, it's Belle Reve, right? And he's walking through Belle Reve. And in walking through Belle Reve, just seeing the people he's put there. And then kind of the revelation of how many of these bad guys actually know Clark's secret and they're in Belle Reve because of Clark. It's like, oh, that's interesting. So that was kind of cool to kind of see that. But to have this episode begin like right where we left off, where Lex Luthor saw Clark use his powers. And what does that mean? Because Lex is crazy, but he was being drugged. But he also naturally has this potential to go crazy. And so to me, like, that was kind of cool. And then shh, I know your secret, Clark. Like, oh my gosh, what is Clark going to do about that? And so the way this episode kicks off with that is so cool. And just kind of following from season 3, where Clark is finding out how much trouble Lex is in. and doing his best to save Lex, because the only thing Lex actually did wrong was figure out Lionel killed his grandparents. That's it. So Lex is trying to put his father away, and Lionel is trying to destroy Lex's mind, his reputation, and the fact that Lex had a predisposed weakness to some insanity. You see Lionel hitting the one weak spot of Lex and hitting it hard, and everybody buys it. And then you have Clark, who on the one hand wouldn't mind Lex losing his memory, because then he would lose Clark's secret. But he also doesn't want Lex damaged. So, like, that's really cool, kind of the tension. Like, when Clark goes to Lionel and Lionel plays the I know your secret, Clark. I think that's actually later. The point is like, that is all. Yeah, that's my favorite episode. Okay, I combined episodes. Point is it adds so much to the story, this episode. And then I love the first bad guy team up. Like, that's kind of interesting. They kill the guy who made the kryptonite bullets, and then you have Jonathan Taylor Thomas returning. His character's kind of mediocre, but the other dude who can steal Clark's powers, I kind of like them together teaming up. Like, that was kind of interesting, but I don't know. I love Asylum. I think it's a great episode. But when you get into my season 3 top 5, you'll find one common thread. A lot of them are Lex and Lionel relationship. I feel like this was the season that made Lex and Lionel pop, and Asylum is one of those where their relationship pops.
Yeah, absolutely. I think season 3 overall as well is sorry, I just read that comment. Yeah, Wizzy Lizzie. I love how Michael Rosenbaum had a flatulence episode whilst in the cage whilst filming. I don't know if you've ever seen the outtakes from that. But
no, I haven't seen those.
No, seriously.
Well, I have the DVD, so I guess I just didn't watch that part of the special feature. Yeah, I got to go back now.
Hilarious. You got to go and just check out those outtakes on the DVD. It's hilarious.
Awesome.
When he's in the straight jacket and he's in that machine and he's just farting away, and it's just it's so
having
funny.
A heart attack
so
while
funny.
he can't even get away from it himself.
It's just weird because, like, the first time I saw that is like I didn't really know Michael Rosenbaum other than Lex Luthor, so you have this image of who he might be as an actor, and then you see Lex Luthor in this straight jacket farting and having a good laugh about it. It was just totally threw me off, but great stuff. But yeah, I think season 3 is the season in which I think you most sympathize with Lex.
Yes.
Over any other time in the show's run, I think, because he's so put through the ringer during this season. And there's a few episodes in our top 5 that really get into that. But yeah, Asylum just narrowly missed out on making my top 5. I think it would be my number 6 choice. Nice. And I think the only reason that it doesn't is that I would have, if I was the one in the writer's room choosing which villains we get to revisit, like you said, Taylor Thomas, he isn't the one I would have brought back.
Yeah, I didn't like him as a villain, but yeah.
And I certainly wouldn't have brought him back only to have him kill the more interesting villain, which was Kryptonite Bullet Man. Because I found him to be a much more interesting character. So when he showed up again and he gets off like that, he's literally there to get some kryptonite into Belle Reve. And once he served that purpose, they kill him. And I'm like, oh, really?
That is kind of sad.
Yeah, because he was actually a really good villain. So that for me is the sour point of it. But other than that, it's just everything that's going on with Lex. And the fact that right at the end, Clark is essentially the one who's responsible for pulling the trigger on Lex's brain getting fried. He doesn't know that, but he is. And it's just like, oh man, it's just tough. It's watching what happens to Lex in this is really tough to watch. And it does make you sympathize with him. And yeah, because you know the man he's going to end up becoming. You see these moments and you're just like, oh, so many times he could have got off that path, but things just keep pulling him back in. And great episode, but not in my top 5. What is my number 5? is Phoenix.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So this is the second part of the opening two-parter for season 3. And it gives us our first proper super fight.
Yes.
Between I mean, the super fight kind of takes place over 2 episodes really, because it's like the last moments of the preceding episode and then the opening section of this episode, and it's such a great super fight between Clark and his father. So Jonathan has gone to get powers from Jor-El to help him bring back Clark, who's still on the Red K after the events from Exodus. And yeah, he goes to Metropolis, where Clark is running about doing all kinds of things he shouldn't be doing, and a fight ensues, and it's awesome. They're throwing each other through pillars. They're just
so cool.
Some real great slow-mo stuff going on. It feels epic.
Yes,
the way that a super fight should be.
It really does.
Yeah, so it's great. But beyond that, we've got a really great villain who comes in the form of Rutger Hauer's what's the name of his character? Can't remember the name. Morgan Edge, that's the one.
Yes.
Will be played by a different actor at some point in the series, which is a shame, but I like Rutger Hauer here. He's great actor anyway, and I love the dynamic between him and Lionel and how that will come into play later on in the series, and his connection to Lionel and the murder of Lionel's parents and things. So it's just it's just a really great episode from start to finish. It's tense. It's got some great action moments, like the stuff on the pier as well at the end when they're doing the swap. Some really violent stuff in the barn when Lana actually kills that guy, and it's just like, well, that's never mentioned again.
Oh yeah, Lana's first kill. Yes.
Yeah. So some really
first of many.
Yeah, cracking episode, and just really the final part of what is really a 4-part episode, because the last 2 episodes of season 2, it's like a 2-parter, and then it kind of ends on a cliffhanger. It's picked up in these 2, so it's really like a 4-part arc that is just capped off.
It's like a little mini Smallville movie.
Yeah. Somebody should edit them together and make a movie. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, but great stuff. So that was my number 5. What is your number 4?
My number 4 is Shattered. I think Shattered is a pretty spectacular episode. Like that picture you have right there. My gosh. Everything that builds to that moment is so well done. And one of the things that I like about season 3, because we learned in season 2, like the longer Clark is exposed to red kryptonite, the more it affects him, the more not unhinged, but I guess the less inhibitions he has. And so now he's been on red kryptonite for 3 months. So this is what? I think this is the 8th episode in. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. So I think this is the 8th episode in, and we still see how red kryptonite has changed Clark. Like season 3 is a bit darker, and one of the reasons is Clark is a bit darker. Like when Clark is really on the case to figure out, is Lex being poisoned or is he crazy? He reaches this point where he's not messing around. Like he takes Lex's guard, holds him to the ground, about to break his arm, and he goes, "You tell whoever your boss is, send a bag full of Benjamins to this address." And like the way he does it, it's the dark Clark, the red K Clark that comes out. And it's like you can see Clark without red kryptonite slip in and out of that dark Clark personality easier than he ever has in the first 2 seasons. And so, like, that was interesting to see how 3 months of Metropolis changed him, to see how red kryptonite changed him. So we really, this season, do get to see a change in Clark Kent. It's like he grows up a little, he's a little bit darker, and now he's got to figure out how to wield all of that the right way. So I think that is all very cool. But again, to really see Lionel Luthor knowing what buttons to push on Lex, because this is where we first start hearing about Julian, I believe. And there's Lex in the barn singing to a wrapped up piece of blanket, like thinking it's his baby brother Julian, trying to quiet the baby down. And so Lionel knowing that Lex was predisposed to that behavior, drugged him to push him to that behavior, because Lex had the proof and got the confession out of Morgan Edge, now played by the different actor, about how Lionel killed his own parents. And so, like, it's very interesting how Lionel pushed him over that edge to madness, ending in that picture that you have of Lex being in the insane asylum in the straitjacket. But even more so, Clark stopping that car. Like, if Morgan Edge wasn't already shot to death, he would have killed Morgan Edge to save Lex. But how he stopped that car, and Lex's face when he sees Clark's powers, like those wide drugged eyes, like, he just threw that car like it was a toy. And of course he sounds crazy. And then poor Clark just takes off. And so Lex is just left looking insane. And I'm like, oh, Clark, I know you got to protect yourself, but you just made Lex look even worse. So you talk about Lex being put through the ringer. I Shattered, to me, was a great part 1, with Asylum being that part 2. And that whole episode is so good.
It is. It's that moment at the end there with Lionel looking at Lex through the glass might just be my favorite close to any episode, because it's really powerful. And the
with performance,
that and Rosenbaum's performance in that as well is just it's heartbreaking. And you also see that there is a little bit of humanity there in Lionel. Like, he does not know how to love. Yes. But he does love. He loves his son, but he has no idea how to demonstrate that love. And it's just like, it's tragic, absolutely tragic relationship. But it's such a great moment from a really great episode. Where have you gone? There you are. Right. Okay. So that was your number 4. My number 4 is Delete. I love this episode. This episode is an absolute blast. And a lot of that is because of Alison Mack as Chloe. I think her performance in this, I love Chloe-centric episodes anyway. I love the character. Yep. But she gets put through the ringer in this episode. I seem to like episodes in which characters we like are getting put through the ringer, because it puts you on their side in such a really emotional way. So obviously this is a point in the series when Chloe has done some things that she's not very proud of. She's betrayed Clark to a certain degree, and she feels bad about it, but it's because Lionel's got a stranglehold on her. She's caught between a rock and a hard place. And then this crazy woman has this tech that can send people after her, and she sends basically all these people that love her after her to kill her, programs them and stuff. So she gets attacked by Clark, she gets attacked by Jonathan, she gets attacked by Lana, and there's an awesome fight scene. Might be my favorite fight scene of the show up to this point, to be honest. Talking about that super fight in the episode of Phoenix, but the fight between Chloe and Lana is just epic.
I thought it was funny, especially when they went into the ladies' locker room. It is. It's so good though, mainly because like you're on Chloe's side, and you're like, "Go on, smack her!" Yes, it's just you beat the tar out of her. And when she like does that slow-mo punch on Lana, and Lana's like, ugh. It's just like, yeah. Yes. But so it's a great fight scene. But it's just I love seeing Max reactions to these people that really she should be able to trust in and loves, who are coming against her. And it's just, I feel for her in the episode. She gives a great performance. It's one of those episodes that is just entertaining from start to finish. If you could take it out of the series, and it probably wouldn't affect the show overall, because there's nothing major in it that's like, mythology based, but just as a 40-minute entertaining ride in which we get some like real emotional connection
to one of the characters we love most. It's a great episode. So Delete for me is my number 4.
I also like you see one more weakness in Clark. Anything that could affect our mind affects his mind. And so seeing how even that email can affect his mind, I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
So number 3 for you is...
My number 3 is Phoenix. And since you already talked about it, I don't think I have a ton of stuff to add to what you said. But you're 100% right. I love the action in this episode. And I think what I love best about this episode, it just hits the ground swinging. I mean, my gosh, the fact that you open with Jonathan Clark mid-fall from Luther's tower all the way down to the ground. And like you said, that fight is incredible. I think one of my favorite moments in that fight is when Clark comes up out of that rubble and he rips open his shirt and he turns around. And Jonathan sees that scar for the first time. And he's like, what in the hell did Jor-El do to you, Clark? And it's like, he made sure I'd never forget who my real father is. And, like, I don't know, like even moments like that could have been cheesy if done wrong were epic because they were done right. And so I love this episode beginning with that action, beginning, like you said, with our first real super fight. And it continues to get better. Like the momentum didn't go down. Like, I mean, I love it. When they want Clark's blood, Morgan Edge doesn't know what he's after. So Clark, when his parents are held hostage, which, by the way, they had his parents on each side of the barn, and they're like, I know you're quick, but you can't get to both. I'm like, you don't know Clark? Yes, he can, dummies. Come on, Clark, you can say both. But instead, though, we got this cool moment where he takes the kryptonite and is cutting open his arm and getting his blood in that jar. And then, like you said, I love that relationship between Morgan Edge and Lionel. And I love it when he returns the blood to Lionel. And Lionel goes, or Morgan says, you're looking at that like it's liquid gold. How much would the source be worth to you? And Lionel's like, well, the source is a mystery. Oh, yeah? I got it from the source. Like, I loved that whole little conversation, especially in light of revelations we get in season 7. So I won't talk about that yet. But anyway, like, it's just a great episode. Action-packed beginning to end. Such a great, really Superman episode.
Nice. Dale Strong. New drinking game. Take a shot every time Brian and Durbin diss online.
I can't condone that because I don't think you'd be sober by the time we're done.
Aaron White, drunk in 5 minutes then, Dale.
Yes. Oh, man. Oh.
Okay, right. So, as you know, I agree with everything you said because that was in my top 5. So my number 3, it's already been in your top 5. It is, of course, Shattered.
Yes.
Absolutely brilliant episode. It came so close to being my number 2. And ask me on a different day, and it probably would be my number 2, to be honest.
Yep.
Again, Smallville's one of those shows where you can rewatch it and episodes can go up and down.
It's very true. Yeah.
Really go up. And I think it depends what time of your life you're at. It depends what's going on in your life at any given moment. Like season 7, for me, worst season ever of Smallville. There's no way it was not going to be the worst season. I've just rewatched it recently. It was like a different season. It was like I
can relate to that.
Yeah.
I had the same feeling about season 8. I hated season 8 above all seasons. And I just finished rewatching and I'm editing my review right now. And I've converted. Like I had such a blast this time around.
Yeah. It's weird. There was like the opening episode, Bizarro, great. And then there was a couple of episodes that were like, oh yeah, this is what season 7 was like. And then boom, there was this like 4-episode stride where they were just knocking it out of the park. I'm like, this wasn't the season 7 I remember. And it's just, I really enjoyed season 7 this time around. But anyway, we'll get there when we get there. But, but that's just to illustrate the fact that, depending on where you're at any given moment, these episodes can be up and down. But for now, Shattered is my number 2 of season 3. Everything you said, I reiterate that. It's just seeing Lex being twisted and brought down by his father, by the man who's supposed to love him most. And it just really highlights how twisted their relationship is, and the tragedy that Clark has a part to play in that, and it's like, oh man, it's such a tragic episode. And who doesn't want to see Lana get hit by a horse? She gets stamped on by a horse. It's a great moment. It's really brutal. It's like, oh, you feel it when she gets hit, and it's just like, yes. Yep. But sorry, I had to throw that in there just for those.
I just wish the Trampled by the Horse episode, if we had to have her in season 4, I wish it happened when she was possessed by that witch. Trample Lana, trample the witch, trample them both in one stupid episode. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Absolutely. Aaron says Smallville doesn't have bad seasons, just some are better than others. 10 seasons of quality. It's hard to, I don't know what that means at the end. But yeah, no, I bring this up. I bring his comment up just because I did post actually today on the Smallville fans Facebook group, which if you're watching this and you're not a member, go and join, because it's a really great group for Smallville fans.
I've had a great time in the group so far.
Yeah, I didn't start the group. I don't run the group. I'm not a mod or an admin there, so I'm not trying to sell you on my group. This is just a group I'm a part of that I really love. It's a great community, and I like going on there and talking Smallville. But I did post today actually about just what I said about season 7, and I said that it was the worst season for me until watching it again recently. And then I got quite a few posts under there saying, there are no bad seasons of Smallville. It's not a bad season. Season 7 is not bad. And it's like, no. I didn't say it was bad, did I? I never said it was a bad season. I said it was the worst.
Yes. I think I even saw that conversation. Yeah.
So what I mean is if you have to rank the seasons, I still like season 7 because I love Smallville. There's still stuff in there that is quality. But of all the seasons, it would have been bottom. But as I say, I think that's probably changed now. So which surprises me, really surprises me.
Hot take for nerds, my friend Chandler Langley. When you're done with Clone Wars, watch Smallville.
Okay. Right. Where were we? Shattered.
Let's see.
I've mentioned Shattered.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So Shattered is my number 3. But yeah, like I say, ask me on a different day, could probably very well be my number 2.
Yes.
But your number 2 is
Perry. No, wait, White. It's called White, or is it called Perry?
No, it's called Perry. It's called Perry.
Okay, good. I forgot. Anyway, like kind of like what you were saying, this could go up or down just depending, but I put this at my number 2 because I enjoyed how utterly fun and lighthearted this episode is. Like, I always thought it was a fun episode, but this last reviewing I did of season 3, I just especially was laughing out loud. Such a great time. The guy who plays Perry White, who apparently is Annette O'Toole's husband in real life, which that was interesting trivia to find out.
Yeah.
But I love him. He does such a great job as that character. And so one of the things I love is Clark learning his power comes from the sun because the solar flares. And so Clark's powers, because of these flares, rev up to 110 to 0 in less than a second. And one of my favorite scenes is that picture you had where Clark is trying to lift the tractor and he can't. And Jonathan's like, why don't you just give it another try? And then he throws it up in the air and it lands in front of Perry White. And Perry just dumps his drink down on the ground. But what I love is like Perry White's like working for a tabloid at this point, searching for aliens. And he actually discovers Clark's powers. And Clark can't even control his powers. So Perry sees Clark in action. And I wish they would have done this. I really wish. I wish it was Perry White that hired Clark at the Daily Planet. I wish, because then Perry would have put 2 and 2 together and figured out Clark was the Blur. And how cool would it have been to have a take on Superman where Perry White, maybe Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen know his secret, but they're part of trying to help him keep the secret. And I'm like, oh, what a great team that could. But anyway, I digress. The point is, it was very cool to see Clark's goodness, especially coming out of being on Red Kryptonite and all the darkness we had just been through. Very cool to see Clark's inherent goodness so impact Perry White that he quit drinking. Like, I don't know. I thought the whole episode was fun, lighthearted, and very meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's a bit like Delete. It's just one of those episodes that is highly entertaining. The thing for me is that it really makes me wish they'd have brought Perry White back so much sooner. Like you get to season 7 and they have that whole clone of Julian storyline, and you're kind of like, at that point, you know, when I think Perry White should be editor-in-chief of Daily Planet before Lois is working there.
Yes.
He should be there before Lois, I think.
I agree, 100%.
And so it's just like, and they set it up, you know, they set his character up. He goes off at the end with a renewed vigor to take up his writing career. But we never get to see him be the editor of the Daily Planet. And it's just, so it's like, why sow that seed if you're never going to let it bloom?
And that's
you
the
know,
part that is sad to me about bringing him in, because I totally agree with you. I mean, I kind of like the Julian plot, but we'll talk about that when we get to season 7.
Yeah.
But I would have preferred it to have been Perry White, because that's what makes the most sense, to see Perry White go head to head with Lex Luthor as Lex is trying to buy the Daily Planet and institute himself as the editor. And so what cool things you could have done with Perry White versus the Luthors again. I mean, makes me sad. But yeah, anyway, I love White. Perry, whatever. It's a great episode. Rebecca, I think that's season 10 we see him again, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's too late in the day, put it that way.
Yes.
He should have shown up a lot sooner than that.
I 100% agree.
Yeah. And Michael McKean's so great anyway. He's got such a great on-screen presence. He was in a double episode of X-Files called Dreamland, which was hilarious.
Was he really?
Yeah. It's a very great episode. Okay, so that was your number 2. My number 2 is the season closer, Covenant. This is an episode that really improved for me on this viewing. It wasn't one of my favorite final episodes of a season when I first watched it, and that is because I started Smallville really with season 4. I'd seen a few episodes. I think I've explained this before. I'd seen a few episodes dotted through, over the years, but not like been totally engrossed in it. It was really with season 4 being repeated on television when I got home from university that I really got into the show. As a result, I went back and I bought all seasons on DVD and watched it. And the thing about this episode is that because I came to it after season 4, none of those deaths at the end really have much impact. So it was it was kind of anticlimactic. But watching it this time around, I don't know. I think I was in the right mindset to come at it from, I guess, just putting myself in the position of someone who would have watched it back when it aired. And actually this time around, they did have impact. Even though I know none of those characters are actually dead, I was just like, how awesome is that? That Lionel has orchestrated all this stuff from inside the cell. He's there getting his head shaved. He's just the ultimate badass. And people are just dropping like flies. It's like he's just taken out all these people in one fell sweep. And going back to when the show first aired, obviously Lex ain't going to be dead. We know that because, and you think, well, because all of these characters are dropping flies, they're gonna at least get rid of one of them. you can't bring them all back.
Right.
Turns out they will, but it's like, so.
Well, they
so
didn't bring Pete back. He's gone.
Well, yeah. So the prime candidate there is Chloe. You know, it's like, and this is something they do a few times with Chloe. Actually, they do it in season 6 as well, because she is the character that, you know, didn't have comic book origins. She was always the one that could be potentially the one to get killed.
Yeah.
So, seeing it this time around and looking at it with that perspective and just thinking, man, I bet people watching this for the first time back when it aired, seeing Chloe get taken out like that with her dad, that must have been like, no way. Just like, so, but yeah, but beyond that, I love everything that's going on with Clark and the I can't remember the name of the Kryptonian woman.
They named her Kara.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? It's like it gets confusing because it's like Kara.
I think Terrell picked his niece's name for a reason. I forget her real name. Lindsay something. It was Lindsay something. But yeah.
But no, it's just, I like all the stuff with her and the what it kind of forces Clark to confront about himself and things like that, and it's just it's just a really great season closer. You know, I if I was ranking the season closers at this point, I would say Tempest, the season 1 closer, then this, and then the season 2 closer, Exodus, which it's still a great episode. But
that one's my favorite. If we're just doing these top 3 right now.
Yeah,
I love Exodus. That was great closer.
I know you love that one. But it's just I like it. It's a great episode, but it never quite struck me on the same dramatic level as the other 2. But so Covenant, great episode, love it.
Yeah, I liked it. I didn't love it this time around. But I do like what you were saying, putting yourself in the position of watching it on TV. I did watch it as it aired. And I can remember going, did they just kill off Chloe? And thinking what you were saying. It's like, well, I guess it makes sense. She's the only one that's not a comic book character, and we're trying to bring him closer to Superman. So maybe they just, like, to me, it was very real that Chloe could be dead. Especially in the season 1 premiere or season 4 premiere, they didn't dive into Chloe being alive somewhere right away. So when they brought Lois in, I was really thinking, oh, dang, she's gone. Lois is taking her place. Like, that's exactly what I was thinking. So, yeah, it was a pretty good cliffhanger, especially the first time you're watching it.
Absolutely. So, that brings us to our number 1s.
Woo! Here we go.
Durban.
I'm excited.
What is your number 1?
My number 1 is Memoria. Okay. Without a question, from the first time it aired to the most recent rewatch, this is my favorite episode of season 3. Love it.
I will say that it is a contender for my favorite episode of all time because, yes, it is also. Oh, not that one.
Oh, there it is.
My number 1 of season 3. Yes. Memoria is an absolute cracker of an episode.
Yes.
Go on, tell me why you love it so much.
There are so many reasons. So I'll do my least favorite reason why I love it, diving into my most favorite. So I love when they put Clark in the tank and Clark regains his earliest memory of his mom, Lara. I mean, this is the first time we hear her name and we hear her voice. And I love that reveal at the end when he's talking to Martha and he's like, I can't believe I forgot her. And Martha said, Lara was your first word and we never knew why. And like, so I love little moments like that. But the real reason this episode is my absolute favorite is because of Lionel and Lex. I love every bit of them getting into Lex's head and those childhood memories being uncovered. Because like you kind of said earlier, you get this human side of Lionel. He does love, he just doesn't really know how to love. And so he loves Lex and he loves Lillian. Like you can see that he does love them, but he is very cruel and cold in his love. And it's almost like cruelty is his way of showing his love. And so it's very cool because it reveals so much about the Lex Lionel dynamic. It adds so much to their present day dynamic as the show is as the episode is unfolding. It adds so much to that. But I mean, one of my favorite moments is Lex having the St. George box, and nobody shows up at his birthday party. And Lionel sits down, has him open that present, and explains to him, take the things you're afraid of and lock them in that box, and you'll find you're braver than you realize. It's like, oh my gosh, Lionel is a human. Somewhere in there is humanity. And I love where this builds, though. And that's the part that gets me. It's when Lex sees the truth that his mom killed Julian. He uncovers that memory that he repressed. And he held on to the lie so long he believed it. And the lie he held on to is he did it to try to protect his mother because Lionel wouldn't kill his heir. And what I love is that final end of that episode.
Yes.
Lionel and Lex.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, it's that realization in Lionel when that moment when he realizes all those years that he's wasted with his spite towards Lex and how it was directed at the wrong person. And now he looks at Lex and says, if I'd have known. And you're kind of like, what? If you'd have known what? It's like it doesn't make it any better because it's still your son, and it's just like, and you see all that in Lex's eyes, screw you.
Yeah.
Whether I did it or didn't do it, you're my father. You should have been there. You should have loved me. And it's just like all this stuff. And this isn't stuff that's been said. This is all in their eyes, in the way they're looking at each other. And it's like Rosenbaum and Glover, just absolutely brilliant actors. When those two are together in a scene, I could watch it all day. But yeah, any episode that centers around those two and their relationship is just, it's on fire. And just that revelation of finding out what actually happened to Julian and the actual fairly heroic nature of Lex as a child to do what he did and take that on board. Again, it makes you sympathize with Lex. It makes you root for him. You know he's going to be the bad guy, but you don't want him to. That's the thing. You don't want Lex to become the man we know he's going to become. And it's because of things like this. It's because of these really great moments of character that show us his humanity, show us that he actually does have goodness in him. A lot of it, actually. Sometimes he does things that are incredibly good. But he just does not have the right teacher. And that's the tragedy. It's the major tragedy in Lex's life is he's never had that right teacher. And it's tragic. It's tragic. And it gets you in the feels every time you watch it.
Every time. I mean, every time I watch just even that last scene, there's been times I haven't watched the episode and I've just skipped straight to that last scene because the acting is so unbelievably good. I sit there and I go, that's award winning. I mean, anytime those two actors, Michael Rosenbaum and John Glover, they're on screen together, acting, performing, playing off one another, it's what sets Smallville, I think, by far and away above the rest of the CW-verse. Yeah. Because it's like you're watching tremendously amazing acting that can actually give you the feels. And like you said, they did such a good job building up that you don't want Lex to turn to the dark side. You feel the tragedy that Lionel doesn't know how to love, and he's been punishing his son this entire time for a sin his son never committed. And even if he did commit it, he's the father, and he needed to love his son and be there for him. And it's so well done. The writing, the acting, the music. Somebody commented Evanescence, the way they even used Evanescence in that episode. It was all so well done.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, like I say, for me, it might not be only my favorite episode of season 3. It might actually be my favorite episode of all time. We'll have to see when I get to the end of it all again. But it's just when somebody asks me to list, say if they said, give me your top 10 Smallville episodes right now, I'd be like, well, I can't really do it, but I know that Memoria is going to be on there.
Oh, it's
definitely going to be on there. So But yeah, it's the first one that pops in my head when I'm thinking that and Precipice, which
I mean, when I think
seem to
season
love more
3,
than anyone else.
this is the episode that pops in my head. It's just so good. Yeah,
definitely. And it's kind of the culmination as well of all the work they did in Shattered and Asylum. Because all the stuff with Julian, you know, all the mental stuff traces back to Julian, you know. So, you know, we got glimpses of that in Shattered when he's holding the wrapped up linen and stuff, but then it's not touched on after that. And you're like, oh,
and you know,
and then it comes back in a big way from Memoria. But yeah,
even though I loved season 8, my last rewatch, I went, oh my gosh, I'm really enjoying the season this time. I have to say, it was still missing that dynamic. I mean, they closed it pretty good, but man, that Luther dynamic.
Yeah.
Oh, like this episode reminds you why that's such a great dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yes, Aaron White, much better than Sorority Boys.
I was just going to say, I quite like Sorority Boys.
I've only seen it once. I went with a girl on a date. Not a good date movie.
Right.
But yes, but that's the only time I saw it, was when I saw it on the big screen.
I didn't even know anything about the film, and I was listening to the Inside of You podcast with Michael Rosenbaum, and he kept mentioning Sorority Boys. I'm like, I'm gonna have to check this film out. So I rented it off Amazon. I found it hilarious. I just thought it was just totally
such a weird, goofy movie.
Yeah, throwaway movie, but the best kind. Just really funny. But yeah, anyway, so that is our bottom 5, top 5 episodes of season 3. Thank you to everyone who joined us in the chat. It's been a pleasure. We will be doing season 4 over on Durban's channel. I'm not quite sure when, but it will be soon, I would imagine. We'll do it soon. Definitely do it soon. We will pin down a date when we finish this show, I think. Honorable mention for Legacy as Christopher Reeve's last episture.
Yes, that deserves an honorable mention.
It does deserve an honorable mention, but it's no way near as good as Rosetta. I think it's structurally, there's some problems with it. It's got issues,
I agree. And then season 7 puts a few more structural problems on that episode. Like, you guys didn't think that one through, did you? But yeah.
But it's a solid enough episode.
It is.
But so thank you to everyone for watching. Do go over, subscribe to Durban's channel, Durbania. Make sure you watch out. You're going to have to go over and subscribe anyway, and click that notification bell on his channel so that you don't miss our season 4 bottom 5, top 5 episodes, because we will be doing it there. We flip flop. I get all the odd numbers. He gets all the even numbered seasons.
That's right.
But there you go.
So unfortunately, I get the Lana Witch season on my channel. And if you've been watching my Smallville reviews, you know about my hashtag Lana drama. That's gonna come out big time when we do the season 4 talk.
So just before we go, I do have my reminder cards just to remind you what our bottom 5, top 5s were. This is Durban's, so you can see there his bottom 5 is Talisman, Extinction, which shouldn't be on there, Relic, Slumber, Magnetic, and his top 5 are Asylum, Shattered, Phoenix, Perry, and the brilliant Memoria, which leads me to mine, which is my bottom 5: Velocity, Truth, Relic, Magnetic, and Hereafter.
Which should not be in your bottom.
And my top 5, which is Phoenix, Delete, Shattered, Covenant, and Memoria. And based on those 2 lists, I think it's safe to say that Memoria and Shattered are definitely the 2 episodes you need to watch. Both appear in our top 5 and pretty high too. So thank you for watching. Do look out for season 4, and until next time, cracking.